All right, everyone, welcome back into another props video. Going to be touching on the top prop bets for the season long in the NFL on both Prize Picks and Underdog. Let's go ahead and get into it. So this will be the second version of this video. I had already done one about 3 months ago that is now just starting to get a lot of love on YouTube. Obviously, with being closer to the season, people are more excited to click on that and get that information. And so with that, I want to give a more up-to-date version of that video and have it be specifically more Prize Picks and Underdog coverage. And so right now I do have the Prize Picks and Underdog season-long cheat sheet available. If you guys click on the Prize Picks and Underdog cheat sheet, click on the football tab, head on over to the NFL player totals. That'll get you into the sheet. And what you can do is you could sort by whichever prop you want to. And right now I have it set to go to passing touchdowns. We're sorting by edge between Prize Picks and Underdog. We can also see where we are getting a decent prop line difference between the two right now. So Prize Picks minus Underdog, where we're getting the edge. Well, we can see that the Prize Picks line for someone like Jordan Love is off by 2 on one of the two sites. Now the average sportsbook line has it about 27.7. So that would tell us that the Underdog line might be a little bit too high. Now, personally, I do like the over for him. I'm a Packers fan. 27.5, that does seem to be slightly too low. Maybe middles. That's just the way to go about using this. I'll go ahead and get into my favorite prop bets now. So when we zoom this sheet out a little bit more, what you'll notice is that we have a massive prop line difference for a few of the quarterbacks here. And so with that, we want to find where we can make the best bet with those quarterbacks, because obviously there's clearly an edge one way or the other. And so one of those is going to be Trevor Lawrence. And so we look at all the lines that we're getting for Trevor Lawrence. His 17 game average needs to be about 222 passing yards per game. We look at all the books in which we are getting the lines. The one clear outlier is going to be the Underdog line, but at the same time, the Prize Picks line also is kind of outlier in the opposite way. Those two are definitely off, and it's strange. You know, this could be a potential for a middling opportunity. Let's say Trevor Lawrence misses a game. Well, then there's a chance where the middles do hit. Now, I do want to call out Trevor Lawrence's game log as well, or just kind of his stats from last year. So last year, he did average around 251 passing yards per game. If you look at his career as well, he has gotten this over in 2 out of the 3 years of his career. The only year he didn't, well, Jaguars fans and really the NFL just doesn't really talk about that year. Obviously, it was a terrible year for the Jaguars under Urban Meyer. And so in a way, we kind of give him a pass. So he's been 2 for 2 there. Now, he has played a lot of games, and I will say, guys, just in general, the injury narrative is super hard to really gauge. Obviously, if you're betting unders, you're in a weird way, and I hate saying it, and I don't feel that way, but you're kind of cheering for an injury. You're hoping that it's not a serious injury, and you're hoping that they only play for a few or only miss a few games. But obviously, if someone gets injured, then that's really not going to help the chances of a player hitting their over. And vice versa, I feel like there are a few lines in there that are that way because Vegas is somewhat saying that that player is going to get injured. And so thus, Prize Picks and Underdog have to give us a line that is also showing that as well. So for me, we did have to somewhat figure out where we wanted to make the bet with Trevor Lawrence. And for me, I just wanted to go with the over because, again, just looking at his career, he's been able to do that every single season except for one. Last year, he even missed a game as well. Now, you might be a little bit worried about his passing weapons potentially going from Calvin Ridley to Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas. I maybe slightly worried about that. Christian Kirk is starting this season out a little bit banged up. The only reason why I slightly worry about that is because you have Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas, who are more guys that are down the field threats, big play threats, rather than move the chains types guys. And if Christian Kirk is going to miss some time, maybe there's a little bit of a worry there. But at the same time, Trevor Lawrence does somewhat struggle with those kind of get open routes, if you will. He's actually much better thrower down the field. And so I think that's why they addressed that with Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis. Overall, I feel very solid about this one. And so the next one I want to figure out kind of what to do would actually be looking at Lamar Jackson. So again, we are getting a decent prop line difference for Lamar Jackson between how Prize Picks and Underdog sees this season going. And so we go ahead and pull it up and seeing kind of the line differences. Again, we are seeing that Prize Picks is definitely the lowest of the sports books pulling in. And then you got Underdog, who's definitely the highest of the two as well. So this is a spot where I do feel like we can choose one line and go in on that and feel pretty good about it. And so for me, I'm actually favoring a little bit more the under for Lamar Jackson. So we go ahead and pull up his game log or his game or season by season log here. Sorry. We're going to notice that he has only gotten this over, that Underdog line over of 3,450 passing yards once. Now they are playing an additional game now, so you could tack that on. He still wouldn't have gotten that over. I think we can kind of clearly say that and see that as well. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, he is going to become more of a passer. He's going to run a little bit less. That could be true. I could get behind that. And you could also argue, hey, his passing weapons are the best they've ever been, assuming they stay healthy. A healthy Mark Andrews. You got Zay Flowers there now. Bateman's maybe playing better. I could see you potentially making that argument. But you got to remember they did bring in Derrick Henry, which is going to be a huge boost to that running game. Arguably the best running back that Lamar Jackson is going to have ever played with. Maybe Henry, takes a step back, and so that's why I phrase it that way. Career-wise, obviously that's true, but that's all stuff that factors into it. And so for me, looking at Lamar Jackson, where I don't want to be banking on another career year. Actually, statistically speaking, he's due to regress back to more of this mean that we have seen from him. And yes, you would look at this and say, well, Eric, I get what you're saying, but he also missed a bunch of games in 2022, in 2021, in 2020, and in 2019. And I would get that argument, but that's also part of the equation as well. You do worry about him, potentially missing a game. And if we look at that game log again, if he misses more time, it's going to be difficult for him to get this over. That's my way of saying it. Personally, I like the under much better than underdog for that. If you guys are listening to this and saying, no, I disagree, great. Bet the over on PrizePicks. Hopefully we can both be right. Now, one line that I was really shocked by when I was going through this process was actually Jonathan Taylor's rushing total. Okay, it's a decent prop line difference as well. 51 yards difference, which might not seem like much, but I kind of think it is, especially with someone like Jonathan Taylor. That can be the difference between this bet hitting or not. And so I do like Jonathan Taylor to get over his rush yards here of 149.5 on PrizePicks. And there are some other prop bets mixed in there as well. Maybe you guys want to target those, you could. But I think the rushing yards one is the best one in terms of variability. Like if he stays healthy, and even if he doesn't, he should still be able to get this over. Now, to start, I want to call out that per game total, that 17 game per game total for him. Only 64.7 in total. That to me does seem to be vastly too low. And so again, just kind of looking at his career stats thus far, we can see every single season he has averaged well over that yardage total. And I don't want to bet on a running back staying healthy for, let's say, the full season. But if you just take his per game average from last year, which is kind of nice, you guys can easily see it, it's going to be 74.1. And so in order for him to get this over, all he has to do is play basically 14.2 games. Now you might say maybe he dips off a little bit. I would actually argue the opposite of that. Last year was actually the worst year of his career, and he got off to a slow start as well. You had Zach Moss mixing in there. Taylor had to get ready for football shape. Obviously had the contract stuff, did sustain a little bit of injury, but going back and looking at it, I was kind of shocked at how good of a season he had as well. So far, I feel like we got two pretty good PrizePicks prop bets. Trevor Lawrence over his pass yards, Jonathan Taylor over his rush yards. I do want to give you a couple more here on PrizePicks, and then we'll get into one for underdog, and then we have another middle as well. So the lines that we're getting on Diggs seem to be a little bit too low to me, honestly, just in general. And I know what everyone's thinking. It's like, well, they're low because you got Nico Collins there, and you also have Tank Dell there. And I get that point. And maybe you worry about CJ Stroud maybe taking a slight step back, obviously having a really awesome rookie season. It's going to be tough to actually top that. And I think the markets are maybe overemphasizing that a little bit. And you did bring in someone like Joe Mixon, who maybe will be a step up from Devin Singletary. I don't like to talk in absolutes if you guys haven't got that. But Diggs is someone where I'm looking at the lines, and between PrizePicks and underdog, we are seeing some differences as well in terms of how they view him as well. So we can see PrizePicks is definitely a little bit lower as compared to underdog. And so for me, this is one where I kind of like chasing the overs on PrizePicks. And this is another one where if you're saying, Eric, I disagree here. I get the point you're making, but I disagree. I think Nico, I think Tank Dell, I think Dalton Schultz are going to have good years. Then bet the under then if you're saying that he's not going to be as good this year. I'm perfectly fine with that. But to me, I just don't see Diggs really taking a step back. I don't think he's that type of player. And even last year, I watching back the film, I don't think he lost anything. I just thought we saw a difference in philosophy for Buffalo. Thus, they were fine moving on from Diggs as a receiver. And so now he lands in Houston. And so we look at this line that we're getting, and I don't even need to pull up his career stats, guys. He's really crushed all these throughout his career. It's just whether or not he's going to be getting that volume again. And I kind of think he is. But if you're a little bit worried about his production in terms of yardage, I would say this 5 5.5 receptions, touchdowns is just too low. And if we sort it by edge here right now, this is the best prop bet that we have for him is the receiving touchdowns of 5.5. And in a way, I kind of think that's part of the reason as to why they brought him in as well, was to be a little bit of a red zone threat for him. And so maybe he doesn't have that high yardage total. Maybe he is a little bit more of a maybe specialty player, but if that is true, then I think he's just going to catch a little bit more end zones a little bit more touchdowns this season as well. So I'm perfectly happy to do that one. Then the last one here for Prize Picks is actually going to be looking at Kirk Cousins for over his passing yards. And so I feel like this number is a little bit too low. Everyone really loves, especially like fantasy football wise, everyone really loves Drake London and Kyle Pitts. You can't hear anyone talk about the Atlanta Falcons and not hear them really talk up those two players. And obviously you got Bijan Robinson there as well. I kind of worry that Arthur Smith actually wasn't that bad of a coach, and maybe Drake London, I think he's actually pretty good, but maybe Kyle Pitts isn't that good. You watch his ball skills and it is a little bit suspect. It's like, whoa, you're supposed to be this great athlete and your ball skills are a little bit questionable. But anyways, I don't need to go off on that tangent. This is about Kirk Cousins, and he is going to be in a good offense. Now, is it better than last year? Probably not. Is it arguably maybe one of the worst in his career? Maybe. I mean, Washington's was never this good, I would say. But when we look at his lines here, guys, what we're going to notice here is that the Prize Picks line is definitely the one that seems to be the outlier. Maybe a little bit of FanDuel, but in comparison to Underdog, like Underdog has the same line as some other sites as well. So to me, yeah, this line for Kirk Cousins seems to be a little bit too low. Needs to average 230 passing yards per game. And if we know anything about the quarterback, they are pretty protected. Obviously, with the running backs, you do worry about them potentially sustaining an injury and that really hindering their production and getting the over. That is a concern. Quarterbacks are a little bit more protected. It'll be a little bit more random for them to sit out a significant amount of time. Now, obviously, Cousins has had a good and long career thus far. When we look at the data here, though, basically when he's been a starter, he has gotten this over every single season except for in 2019. And that is excluding this year when he was injured, or his past year when he was injured. He was clearly well on his way to getting that over last year. Now, I know what the argument's going to be. He's not going to have TJ Hawkinson, and more importantly, he's not going to have Justin Jefferson. If you are someone that does buy into Drake London and also Kyle Pitts being really good, then I think you wouldn't have any sort of hesitation. To me, what I'm looking at this, guys, when Kirk Cousins got injured last year, he was, I would say, the best quarterback in the league at that point with how he looked on film. And I really don't see that as a hot take. The question becomes is, and guys, I've said this a bunch, like the quarterback play was not really good last year, especially at the point in which Kirk Cousins got injured. I mean, really, there's Lamar Jackson, in the season. Mahomes was kind of bad for a lot of it, a little bit due to chemistry issues and just not having the best receivers and receivers just making him look bad as well. I get that. And then, I mean, I would say Jordan Love was next, but that was more of a full season thing. Like the quarterback play, guys, was really bad at the start of the year. And so it's not really a hot take to say he was the best quarterback at that point, but I think it still stands. He looked great is my point. Accuracy, really great. Now, he's not a mobile quarterback. He is going to have to throw the football a lot. I like the Atlanta defense. Maybe they don't have to throw the football as much. Maybe they're not playing from behind. But I do buy into him having good weapons. I mean, Darnell Mooney's there as well. And so I do like this over. Assuming he plays 16 games, I think he gets this over pretty easily. Now, guys, I do want to talk about that Jordan Love big prop line difference that we saw with his passing touchdowns. And I want to call out that I do believe that the Green Bay Packers brought in Josh Jacobs for a reason to kind of alleviate the necessity to have Jordan Love throw a bunch of red zone touchdowns. He went like 11 for 12, I think, last season or something like that, the best of the season. And that's because they weren't able to throw the football. And so I could see that number coming down for Jordan Love. Thus, the running game is going to be scoring a little bit more. Thus, Josh Jacobs would be a good option to get, I would say, 8 rushing touchdowns. I would say that's a good line. But I will say, I don't really see those correlating as much. I think if Jordan Love does see his passing touchdowns drop, then we're going to see Josh Jacobs have a good game or a good season in terms of rushing touchdowns. Now, I do think this line for Jordan Love is, regardless, like too low. I mean, he is someone that should average around 2 passing touchdowns per game. A lot of the issues from last year that people don't really understand with Jordan Love weren't really on him. A lot of people say, oh, he started out the season kind of poor, and that's not true. He started out the season really good. The team had a little bit of a lull which was like chemistry things, like just players running the wrong routes, slight miscommunication things, some choice routes, just some weird stuff happening, some poorly timed penalties and whatnot. But you would hope after another off season of, chemistry with those younger receivers, young tight ends, and really that young offensive line, that is going to be cleared up a little bit. Now, they actually did get younger this season, but I think they're going to be a little bit more established. So I do like the over 27.5 passing yards. I think I would roll with that. And even if it does cut back a little bit from last year, he could still get this over. Like, I do expect it to get down a little bit from last year, but I still expect him to get that over. All right, so the last player that I want to talk about is going to be Saquon Barkley for his rushing yards. I'll have you guys think of what I'm going to choose here, if it's going to be over and under. It's actually going to be the under. Okay, so for me, for Saquon Barkley, again, like if you guys are saying, no, I disagree, that's fine. I get it. I do worry about his health. I hate using that argument. I do. But it is a concern with Saquon Barkley, who has proven time in and time again, year in and year out, that he can't stay healthy. And again, just kind of using the comparison between every sportsbook here, we are going to see that PrizePicks and Underdog are, the two outliers for sure. But Underdog is the clear outlier between all of them. Like, that is vastly too high in comparison. And so again, we kind of look at his career log here, and he has been someone that throughout his career has not been able to play a full season. Now, the two times that he has done that, he has gotten this over. And so for me, it really would just, if you're betting the over, it would just be a bet on him staying healthy throughout the season. And I sure hope so, guys. I really do. Like, he's a great talent. I really don't like seeing anyone get injured, but especially like star players like him, that'd be unfortunate. And it does seem to be that he is the most healthy, and like the news with him surrounding this offseason is the best it's ever been. And you would argue this is the best situation he's ever been in. That could be part of it as well, though. Maybe this is the best situation that he's ever been in. Maybe Jalen Hurts does rush the football a bunch. Maybe A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and even Dallas Goedert have great seasons as well, which could limit Barkley. I don't need to go too crazy with that. I think that's decent. And then just in the interesting middle that I saw that I just wanted to talk to you guys about was this one here with TJ Watt. With his sacks, I mean, this is a big difference that we're seeing here. So his sack total is 14 on PrizePicks, whereas his underdog is at 15.25. Now, you might be wondering, why is it at 0.25? Half a sack is why. Okay, so I kind of think this is a good chance in the middle. I mean, that should not be that big of a difference. Okay, so for Watt, he does need to stay healthy as well. That is a big concern. And obviously 15.5 sacks is going to be a lot as well, especially if you're not staying healthy. I just want to call this one out. I really don't have a feeling on this either way personally. I would be fine betting the middle on this, hoping for 15 sacks total. Just an interesting line that I wanted to call out to you guys when I was doing the research for this video. All right, so let's go ahead and recap these bets as well. So again, with Jordan Love, there is a little bit of a middle opportunity where on Underdog, the line is set at 29.5. To me, I would say 27.5 is definitely the one I would rather roll with, which is what we're doing here on PrizePicks. Do worry a little bit that Josh Jacobs could get a lot of rushing touchdowns, 10 plus. I do think that's partially why they brought him in. But overall, I still think this is a great bet. And then Jonathan Taylor. It is a little bit of a bet on Jonathan Taylor staying active. Again, we need him to play about 14 or so games, 15 to round up, which is what we're hoping for here. Everything seems to be good for him to go thus far this season. Obviously, can't predict injuries. Don't exactly love that. For Trevor Lawrence, I honestly am a little bit concerned that Trevor Lawrence might be due for an injury, having, on his fourth season now, has kind of avoided injuries thus far. I don't want to jinx him or anything like that. It's just like one of those things where it's like, it wouldn't be totally shocking just given the fact that he hasn't had that happen yet. But if he doesn't, I mean, this is just vastly too low of a line, I would say, for him, especially given the fact that the past two seasons, he has easily gotten, I shouldn't say easily, but has gotten this over as well. Diggs. So some people might not like this one, but his line is off by 1 on Underdog. It's at 6.5. I would say at 5.5, that's too low. I do think he's going to be involved in the red zone. I think that's partially why they brought him in, to be a good red zone target for him as well. And then Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is going to be in a good offense. Obviously, he's a pass-first quarterback. When he plays a full season, and that might be the concern with you, he typically will crush this line. He should easily be able to get to 4,000 passing yards, assuming he stays healthy for the full season. And then before we get into the Underdog bet of the day, do just want to remind you guys, if you have never signed up for Underdog, honestly, right now is a great time to do it. With NFL starting, there are so many great promo codes going on for really all the DFS prop sites, but really Underdog and PrizePicks are the main two. So take advantage of that. It'll give you guys a deposit match. I believe it's up to $250. Just just make sure to double check that before you submit it. But it's going to be up to $100 for sure. Use the promo code 905. So let's go ahead and get into this bet. So looking at it, guys, a little bit of this is maybe targeting players that are a little bit of injury risk, I would say. And again, I don't want to bet on a player getting injured or not getting injured. I think that is kind of dumb, but that can be a factor into a bet. And so when I was going through the process of trying to find my favorite lines or prop bets for season long, I do think looking at where we were getting outliers was a good thing to do. Now, I didn't call out every single bet that was like that. There's a bunch where we were getting decent prop line differences where we could potentially try to middle and whatnot. I dialed in on which ones I thought were the most likely to happen, obviously. Lamar Jackson having a statistical outlier season last year does mean that his line this year is going to be a little bit higher than his career average. At the same time, I do think that that was more of an outlier. And so I do think that this line's a little bit too high, and maybe he does get a little bit banged up. Saquon Barkley as well. The guy just doesn't stay healthy. Again, I think vibes-wise, I do think he probably does stay healthy for 15 games, but that's just a complete guessing game. Again, I just don't like doing that. And then TJ Watt, that is a little bit of a middling opportunity. If you wanted to bet his over 14 sacks on PrizePicks, by all means, go for it. Obviously, on underdog, I like to chase three slip bets because the payout is slightly better than what it is on PrizePicks. That's a slight edge that we can gain. All right, everyone, that is going to be all for this video. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that. If you guys want access to the tools that you saw in this video, as well as those prop tools for NFL, college football, PGA, head on over to 905sports.com, available for $10 a month. All right, thanks for watching, and as always, let's keep cashing.